Yeah. Anyway, on to the next question. So, if interest rates are all going up, do I take a mortgage loan now or later? Maybe, Steph, you wanna like, talk a little bit about this?
Uh, how should I go with this? For me, in my opinion, I think it's to get now if possible. Why? Because I'm looking at the property market clock, the property clock. So we are at the bottom coming up now. So what I wouldn't encourage people to do is to buy at the top of the market. But since we are still at quite at the bottom now, before it gets back up, if you really need to buy a house, I would say really consider the options you have now instead of later. Because why? And another reason is because me coming from a property development background as well. I see construction costs being increased a lot, and developers are going through pressures to increase price. Okay, so there's no way that they can reduce price when the cost is increasing 20-30% and even 50 because of the labor shortage as well as like the steel price going up and the construction materials. So it's really hard to say, and it's better not to time the market as well, because based on trend, we are still like at the bottom, but coming back up soon or even now. So I think it's good to take the opportunity. Let's say if you really need to buy a house now. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to say that I really like what Stephanie mentioned just now. Don't try to time the market. For any investment really, I would say if you want to buy, the best time is probably now. That's like a very famous quote from Warren Buffett as well. Because yeah, just you don't time the market because you still need to do your homework. You still need to find your undervalued property, or in the case of like equities, you still need to do your valuations and stuff like that. And in the end of the day, you're invested only when you put your money down, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So Aaron, you got anything to add in?
I think Stephanie is the best person to answer this in terms of now or later, because she's inside the field, right? And I like that she actually comes across from a perspective that construction costs are going up, because usually that kind of tells me that underlying the fundamentals means that this price increase is due to construction costs going up and not credit going up. You get what I mean? If that makes sense, because if the price increase is due to basically like leverage, right, then usually it's not sustainable, especially with the interest rate increase. But if it's due to material costs going up by 20 to 30%, then I would say that you just need to be prudent in the purchase price that you pay lah. And also, I like that actually what Steph really comes home with, right, is that you're buying it because you need it and a utility and something which you have been looking for in a long time, right? If you have been looking for a property for a while, then actually, to be honest, property up, property down, so long as you keep to the key tenants, like what we mentioned on podcast, right? 30% of your income, cash flow, assess the market place and make sure you try to get fair value. The best is below market price, and be open to like sub-sale if you want, if you can, because like as what she has mentioned, there's value in there. And the way that I see property is I don't usually see it as a growth play, but more of a value play. Meaning you try to, if you want to have the biggest cost savings ever, try to get it as cheap as possible, because there will be buyers who unfortunately they had to let go properties at a cheap price lah. So I think like unfortunately this is the game of like value investing lah. You have to look for distressed sellers, then you basically like buy the property for cheap, because unfortunately this is how the game is played. So in terms of buying now or later, I would say that in every single market, up, down, left, right, there's always people who make money, right? In a market crash, a lot of hedge funds, they make triple digit returns. In a market upswing, there's also funds who make a lot of money, and likewise there's many funds who also lose money in a up market, and funds that lose a lot of money in a down market. So I think end of the day, what it really stems back down, right, is due diligence, and also time in the market, because essentially, if you try to time the market, you just need to understand that time in the market only really matters, I think, in the short term, about 3 6 months, maybe 1 year. But if you actually like really zoom out and you look at time frames of like 15 20 25 30 35 years, right, what you're going to realize, the main reason why markets in general and asset price go up is quite simple, and that ties back to our first episode of this podcast called the fiat standard, and that is currencies through time and space are just very terrible places to hold value using cash. In Singapore we see inflation, in Malaysia we see inflation, and I can say over the years, what I've noticed and what I've realized is that the market is just designed to go up lah, because unfortunately, people work better in an inflationary environment because it forces people to spend money. Because if you are in a deflationary environment, then you basically the same scenario is you look in Japan, that's what you're going to get. Basically, for the last like 20, 30 years, right, you realize that the country has not changed much because of the spectacular crash, and they basically just become hermit mode for like 20, 30 years. Right. So I think like observing many like scenarios and like macro environments, I've just come to the realization that inflationary environment is tend to be the better solution, over historical basis. And the best way that you can counter inflationary environments, right, is to basically make sure that you put your money to work as actively as you can at a risk profile and a risk tolerance, right, which appeals to you, be it in equities, be it in crypto, be it in real estate. Essentially, try not to hold cash beyond your emergency fund requirements. As much as possible, you will want to utilize cash, because that is the best way that you can get the return. Because essentially, if you look at very rich people and very wealthy individuals and businessmen, what are they very good at? They are very good at deploying capital. And that is what personal finance is. Personal finance essentially is learning how to deploy capital against your other opponent, which is inflation. If you're able to get good at deploying capital with the help of that, then I think in most cases you will do quite well.
All right.